Hello everyone. Today's topic is elemental cycles, and myself, Dr. A. Madhavi, Assistant Professor of Microbiology from Government Degree College for Women, Begumpet. Now, let us understand different types of elements which are present in the nature, that is, nitrogen, carbon, sulfur, phosphorus, how these elements are being recycled in nature and how they are entering into living organisms and how they are going back into nature. All these things we can understand in this lecture. And here we are more emphasizing on the role of microorganisms in these elemental cycles. So let us begin with the introduction. Based on the involvement of microorganisms, the nutrient cycles are classified into two compartments. Okay, one is reservoir pool and the other one is cycling pool, right? So how the microorganisms are utilized in this cycling of elements, these nutrient cycles are of two types, right? One is two compartments. They have been divided. One is reservoir pool, the large, slow moving, non biological component. Reservoir pool means it is the largest segment in which the elements are slow moving, and non-biological component means it is a non they are present in non-living um, part of the nature. And second one is cycling pool or exchange pool, or this segment or this compartment is smaller when compared to the reservoir pool. And this is the active portion that can be exchanged rapidly between the environment and the organism. Okay, so this is a smaller segment or smaller compartment, but it is very active in nature. And this part or a cycling pool or exchange pool part can be recycled very rapidly or exchanged between the environment and the organisms in a rapid fashion. Okay, so here we understood elements exist in two types, one is reservoir pool and the cycling pool, right? So based on the nature of reservoir pool, the nutrient cycles are differentiated into two types, right? Again, the cycles are of two types. One is gaseous type and the other one is sedimentary type. Now let us see what are gaseous type, in which the reservoir is the atmosphere and hydrosphere. Means when we are calling this cycle as a gaseous type, when the reservoir is the atmosphere and hydrosphere. What is atmosphere? In the air. And what is hydrosphere? In the water. If the element is existing in the air or in the water, then that elemental type is called as, or that nutrient cycle is called as gaseous type, right? For example, carbon cycle and nitrogen cycle. So where these elements are present, mostly they are present in atmosphere. And coming to the next type, that is sedimentary type, in which the reservoir is the earth's crust. Means they are present in the earth's crust. Example, phosphorus cycle and sulfur cycle. So in this slide we understood that nutrient cycles are of two types. One is gaseous type and the other one is sedimentary type. Okay, gaseous type, example carbon and nitrogen, they are existing in atmosphere or hydrosphere. And sedimentary type, they are present in earth's crust, example phosphorus and sulfur cycle. Clear? Next, so let us start with the first cycle, that is carbon cycle. We know that carbon is existing in the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide, okay, CO2. And how much carbon dioxide is present? It is around 700 billion tons of carbon dioxide is present in atmosphere. So 115 billion tons is utilized by photosynthesis, 75 billion tons by out of this 115 billion tons, around 75 billion tons is utilized by land plants, whereas 40 billion tons is utilized by phytoplankton or algae. And carbon is present in the form of simple carbohydrates, proteins, etc. in living systems. Okay, in the living beings, carbon can be seen in the form of carbon, carbohydrates, proteins, or other biomolecules. Right. Next, carbon dioxide comes from respiration of plants and animals, decay and fermentation of organic matter, volcanic activity, solution of sedimentary rock and springs, and burning of coal, oil, gas, plants, etc. Okay, we know one fact that carbon dioxide, when it increases, when carbon dioxide level increases in nature, it will lead to greenhouse effect. Okay, or the temperature of the earth will be increased, which results in melting of glaciers and other problems will be there, right? So greenhouse effect or should not be there, right? So from where this carbon dioxide is coming into or entering into the atmosphere, it is coming from respiration of plants and animals, by the decay and fermentation of organic matter, by explosion of volcanoes, by sedimentary rock, and springs, and burning of coal, oil, gas, plants, etc. Everything will be lead to the release of carbon into the nature. Right. Next, the cycle of carbon in nature comprises two main processes. Okay, so the carbon cycle mainly is based on two processes. What are they? First one is the conversion of oxidized form of carbon into reduced organic form by photosynthetic organisms. Okay, so in the carbon cycle, first main process is photosynthesis. What is happening in photosynthesis? It is the conversion of oxidized form of carbon, means conversion of oxidized form of carbon means carbon dioxide. Here we are talking about carbon dioxide. Okay, so conversion of carbon dioxide into what form? Reduced organic form, right? So what we know, what happens in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide will be converted into carbohydrates. So same thing here, carbon dioxide can be converted into carbohydrates, that is reduced organic form. And the next process is restoration of original oxidized form through mineralization of the organic form by the microorganisms. Okay. So first, what was the first step in carbon cycle? It is fixing of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates by photosynthesis. Now, what is the second step in the carbon cycle? It is again release of carbon dioxide. Whatever carbon dioxide has been fixed by photosynthesis, again it must go back into the environment side. So that restoration of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, it can be done by mineralization of the organic forms by the microorganisms, right? So these are the two main processes. One is photosynthesis and the other one is mineralization, right? Now coming to the main cycle, in this as we have learned in the last slide about photosynthesis, here there is equation, right? Let us see the equation here. The carbon dioxide represents the sole source of carbon for autotrophic bacteria. Autotrophic bacteria, what do you mean by autotrophic bacteria? Auto means self, trophy means nutrition, right? So the bacteria or the organisms which can prepare their own food on their own, prepare their food on their own, are called as autotrophic bacteria, right? So for these autotrophic organisms, sole source of carbon will be carbon dioxide. Definitely, most of the majority of the organisms or autotrophs will utilize carbon dioxide, right? The later fix carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. Last slide we have discussed photosynthesis is nothing but conversion of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates, right? So in this equation, we can see that carbon dioxide plus hydrogen gives carbohydrates plus water. Heterotrophic bacteria fix carbon dioxide commonly. So we are talking about autotrophic bacteria. Now let us see this heterotrophic bacteria. What is how these heterotrophs are fixing? They are adding this carbon dioxide into pre-existing organic compounds. Okay, here we can see this pyruvic acid. When it reacts with carbon dioxide, it is resulting in oxaloacetic acid. If you can count the number of carbons in pyruvic acid, it is around three molecules. One, two, three carbons are there, and when it is made to react with carbon dioxide, it is giving oxaloacetic acid, which is a four carbon compound, right? So carbon dioxide is getting inserted into the pyruvic acid and getting and converting this pyruvic acid into oxaloacetic acid. So here what we have learned, this is the incorporation of atmospheric carbon dioxide by autotrophs and heterotrophs. Autotrophs, they are performing photosynthesis, and heterotrophs, they are inserting this carbon dioxide into the pre-existing organic compounds. Now, second step is mineralization, that is restoration of carbon dioxide. First one is process of respiration. Second is accidental and intentional burning. Third is decomposition of organic matter by microorganisms. Okay, so in the first step, we have seen how the carbon dioxide is entering into the living systems. In the second step, we are seeing how this carbon dioxide is released back into the atmosphere. So by process of respiration, even when we respire, we take oxygen into our body and release carbon dioxide out, right? So process of respiration by plants, animals will release carbon dioxide. Next is accidental and intentional burning. Forest fire, burning of anything for that matter, oil, plants, any fuel, anything will release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And the third step is by decomposition of organic matter by microorganisms. So when the organism dies, any organism, when it dies, it has to be decomposed, right? So that decomposition will be carried out by microorganisms, and by this decomposition process, whatever elements are present in that living dead body will be released into the atmosphere, whether it is carbon or nitrogen or any element, it has to be released. So by this decomposition also, this carbon dioxide is released. So let us revise how this carbon dioxide is going back into the nature. First one is by respiration, second one is by burning fuel, and the third one is by decomposition, right? So this entire carbon cycle is depending on two steps. One is fixing of carbon dioxide by autotrophs and heterotrophs, and second step is release of carbon dioxide into nature by three processes, right? Now, here in all the steps, first we have decomposition is mainly done by microorganisms. Now, let us see how this decomposition is being carried out. Coming to cellulose decomposition, cellulose is the major component which is present in plants. So, for example, in forest fire or burning wood, what happens when the cellulose is present? The cellulose, sorry, when it is decomposed, what happens? Cellulose, when decomposed by cellulase enzyme, it will release cellobiose, and cellobiose, by the action of another enzyme called as beta glucosidase, it will release glucose. Okay, so this cellulose is a polymer of glucose. Step by step, this is releasing glucose. Again, by glucose will be acted upon by series of enzymes in the process, in the pathway, in the process called as glycolysis. It will release carbon dioxide plus water and or other end products. Okay, so ultimately carbon dioxide has come again back into the environment. This is decomposition of cellulose, which is utilizing different series of enzymes and converting the cellulose into glucose, and then glucose again into carbon dioxide and water. Now, the fungi which decompose cellulose in soil are mainly Trichoderma, Aspergillus, Penicillium, Fusarium, Chaetomium, Verticillium, Rhizoctonia, Myrothecium, Merilius, Pleurotus, Formis, etc. So all these are fungi which are helping in cellulose degradation in soil, and the bacteria that bring about cellulose decomposition in soil consist mainly of the species of Clostridium, Cellulomonas, Streptomyces, Cytophaga, Bacillus, Pseudomonas, Nocardia, Micromonospora, Sporocytophaga, Polyangium, Self-falsicula, etc. So all these are bacteria. So there are a number of organisms which are present in the soil and which are responsible for cellulose degradation in the soil, ultimately converting it into carbon dioxide. Next component in plants is hemicellulose. Coming to hemicellulose, here the enzyme required is hemicellulase, right? The substrate is hemicellulose and the enzyme is hemicellulase. And this hemicellulase enzyme is produced by fungi, Chaetomium, Aspergillus, Trichoderma, Penicillium, Fusarium, etc. And the bacteria, Bacillus, Pseudomonas, Cytophaga, Vibrio, Arvenia, Streptomyces, etc. So these all organisms are responsible for hemicellulose degradation in soil. Next component is lignin. Again, lignin is also present in plants or wooden trees. So this is the third most abundant constituent. First one is cellulose, second one is hemicellulose, and the third most abundant component is lignin. It is highly resistant to microbial degradation. However, certain fungi such as Aspergillus, Penicillium, Fusarium, Lenzites, Calvaria, etc. are able to degrade this lignin component of plants, and bacteria such as Streptomyces, Nocardia, Flavobacterium, Xanthomonas, Pseudomonas, etc. are responsible for degradation of lignin in soil, but at a very slow rate. So, what is happening during recycling of carbon? What are the important functions which are being carried out during carbon cycle? First one is formation of organic matter through photosynthesis and chemosynthesis. Okay, so as we have discussed, this carbon cycle consists of two processes. One is photosynthesis and the other one is mineralization or decomposition. Okay, so in photosynthesis, what is happening? Organic matter is being formed. How? By the process of conversion of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates, right? So whether it is a chemosynthesis or photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is fixed here into organic matter. Now next is decomposition of organic matter and release of inorganic compounds. We have seen a series of enzymes responsible for degradation of different compounds, such as cellulose, hemicellulose, lignin, etc. So whatever be the pathway, whatever be the enzyme, ultimately these polymers will be converted into simple compounds, that is carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane, hydrogen, etc. And nutrient rich food source for other chemoheterotrophs. These carbon compounds will act as a food source for chemoheterotrophs. Modification of substrates and nutrients during different interactions. Now, there will be n number of combinations or n number of conversions during the cycle of feeding, or these cycles will be, the substrates will be modified into different forms during microbial interactions, changing the amounts of materials in soluble and gaseous form. As we are studying about carbon cycle, as the cycle is carried out, the amount present in solid form and gaseous form will vary, and production of inhibitory compounds that decrease the microbial activity and symbiotic interactions. So inhibitory compounds are also produced during this interactions, which decrease the microbial activity, and some of them will also show symbiotic interactions. Symbiotic means sim means together, bio means life. So living together is called as symbiotic interactions. So this is the cycle, carbon cycle. Here, when it is asked in exam, definitely this cycle must be drawn, and you have to remember this cycle. And important part in drawing the cycle is pointing out arrows in a correct direction. If this arrow is showing upwards, definitely it has to be shown upwards. You can't show it down or two ways either, right? So let us try to understand this cycle first, and I'll give you tips how to remember this carbon cycle and how to draw it very easily, right? So first we have to start with two columns which is present, one at the top and the other one at the base. Okay, one is at the top is atmospheric carbon dioxide. This here we are writing at the top because carbon dioxide is present in the atmosphere, which is on the top, and at the base, complex organic compounds in soil and water. So carbon compounds are also present in soil and water. So first we have to draw these two columns, and then we have to start with this photosynthesis. First photosynthesis, first process what we remember is photosynthesis. First you draw photosynthesis, right? What is happening in this photosynthesis? Carbon dioxide is getting converted into carbohydrates in the plants. Okay, so arrow will be towards these plants, and whatever carbohydrates are being produced in plant, they will be utilized by animals. When animals feed on plants, the carbohydrates present in plants will enter into animals. And one more way is to enter into microorganisms. When plants die, they will be decomposed by microorganisms, or when they eat the plants, microorganisms, the carbohydrates present in plants will enter into microorganisms. Okay, these are the organic compounds, right? When plants, animals, or microorganisms, when they respire, when they carry out respiration, the carbon dioxide will be released back into the atmosphere. This part is done. And when all these organisms, when they die, death, decay, or excretion, all that will release complex organic compounds into soil or water. Okay, this part we have understood. First is process is photosynthesis, by which atmospheric carbon dioxide is coming into the plants in the form of carbohydrates. Plants, when they are eaten up by animals, they'll enter into carbon will enter into animals. Plants, when they get degraded by microorganisms, they will enter into microbes, and all these are organic compounds. When these organisms respire, atmospheric carbon dioxide is released, or when they undergo death, decay, or excretion, these are releasing complex organic compounds into the soil or water, right? This part is over, and the next is here in the soil or water, microorganisms will be there. Okay, so these organisms or microorganisms, whatever present in soil or water, when they respire, right? When they respire, again carbon dioxide is released. So half cycle is over, and next step is fossil fuel. When we burn fossil fuel, they will release atmospheric carbon dioxide, and when this organic microorganisms present in soil, when they carry out microbial oxidation or methanogens mainly, they will produce this methane gas. So this methane again, when it undergoes oxidation, microbial oxidation, it will release carbon dioxide. Okay, so directly the organic compounds may undergo oxidation and release carbon dioxide, or the methanogens will release produce methane, which further, when it is undergoing oxidation or when it is burned, it will release atmospheric carbon dioxide. Okay, so this is the flow chart. Again, I am revising it so that you can remember. First, start with the photosynthesis, go back with the respiration, go down with the excretion, death, or decay. Right. Next, the organisms present in soil or water and carry out respiration, by which carbon dioxide is released. And the second is fossil fuels, and the third one is methanogens. So in this way, if you can draw this carbon cycle in an easy format. Next comes here nitrogen cycle. Next is nitrogen cycle. Uh, so till now we have learned about carbon. Now we have to learn about nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen occupies the main bulk of the atmosphere. It is around 79% in the atmosphere, and as well as the biological systems. This nitrogen is chemically inert. Inert means it is not reactive, or it is very stable molecule. Why it is chemically inert is due to presence of triple bond between two nitrogen atoms. Now, percentage of nitrogen in the atmosphere remains constant by the operation of a nitrogen cycle in nature. As we have seen carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle is also being carried out in nature for establishing stability in the concentration of nitrogen in the atmosphere. Now, in this nitrogen cycle, there are four groups of microorganisms which are carrying out this conversions, or carrying out this cycle. And that first one, or group one, is those microorganisms which are capable of fixing atmospheric nitrogen, that is biological nitrogen fixation, that is of combining free nitrogen with other elements or compounds. Okay, so what is group one members are doing? They are carrying out biological nitrogen fixation, means they are converting atmospheric nitrogen, that is N2, into ammonia in the organisms, right? Next, group 2 microorganisms bring about the production of ammonia, that is ammonification. Second one, they are producing ammonia. And the third one, these group of microorganisms, they oxidize ammonia into nitrite, and nitrite to nitrate. This is nitrification. And fourth group, they are carrying out denitrification. Okay, they are transforming nitrates into nitrogen or nitrous oxide. This is the reverse process of first three steps. Okay, they are converting this nitrates into nitrogen or nitrous oxide. This process is called as denitrification. Again, I am revising this. In nitrogen cycle, there are four groups of microorganisms are available. Group 1, they are fixing this atmospheric nitrogen. And the second group, it is ammonification. Third group, they are carrying out nitrification. And fourth group, they are doing denitrification. In the first step, fixation of free nitrogen or biological nitrogen fixation, this part mm, we learn in detail in nitrogen fixation. Okay, so here nothing is happening in biological nitrogen fixation. This nitrogen which is present in the atmosphere, it is taken up by mm, these organisms, microorganisms. They are being in symbiotic association with legumes, right? They will form nodules, root nodules. And in this root nodules there will be bacteroid zones. In the bacteroid zones, nitrogenase enzyme will be there. This nitrogenase enzyme will convert nitrogen into ammonia. Okay, and next group of microorganisms is doing ammonification. What is ammonification? Release of ammonia or release of ammonia is called as ammonification. In this ammonification, there are two steps. One is proteolysis, and the other one is amino acid degradation. Okay, proteolysis, but the name itself shows it is lysis means breaking, proteo means protein. It is a breaking of a protein or breakup of a protein. Right. This proteolysis is carried out by Clostridium species, Pseudomonas, Proteus, Bacillus, and other actinomycetes and many fungi. So all these organisms, what they are doing, they are breaking these proteins into first peptides and then peptides into amino acids. Okay, so proteins ultimately are converted into amino acid, and the next step is amino acid degradation. So here amino acids are there. Why the name amino acids? They are having amino group and acidic group. Amino group is NH3 is there, and acidic group means COOH group are there in these biomolecules. So from these amino acids, ammonia will be released in amino acid degradation. So these amino acids will be degraded and then ammonia is released. So for example, here if we take alanine, alanine is an amino acid. When it reacts with oxygen in presence of alanine deaminase, it will give pyruvic acid plus ammonia. So ultimately ammonia is released. So this is the result of the step called ammonification. So in ammonification, what the microorganisms are doing, they are carrying out two steps. One is proteolysis and the other one is amino acid degradation, and ultimately ammonia is released into the atmosphere, and in this process many microorganisms are involved. And the third one is nitrification. Nitrification is the conversion of ammonia to nitrate. Okay, so in the last step ammonia was released. So in the third step this ammonia will be converted into nitrate. This process is done by many microbes such as nitrosomonas, nitrosococcus, nitrosolobus, nitrospira, nocardia, and streptomyces. These are the microbes responsible for this conversion of ammonia to nitrate, and this is the equation, right? So what should be done here? It ammonia should be converted into nitrate. So this is the ammonia, and this is nitrate, and this is nitrate. Okay. Here, ammonia when it is reacting with the oxygen, it is forming nitrite plus water. Now again, next step is oxidation of nitrite to nitrate. Oxidation of nitrite to nitrate. Ultimately, nitrification means nitrate must be formed. So, in the intermediate step, nitrite is formed here, and this nitrite must be converted into nitrate when it reacts with oxygen, right? It can form nitrate, right? So, this conversion of nitrite to nitrate is done by microbes such as Cephalosporium, Aspergillus, and Penicillium. Ultimately, nitrification means conversion of ammonia to nitrate. This is done in again in two steps. First, in the first step, nitrate will be formed, and in the second step, nitrate will be formed. And the last step is denitrification. Okay, as I said, it is the reverse step of first three processes. Denitrification means in the first three steps, what we have seen, the conversion of nitrogen to nitrates. Now, this conversion of nitrates to molecular nitrogen is nothing but denitrification. Okay, so nitrates to nitrogen gas or nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide means N2O, right? So these are the microorganisms which are responsible for this denitrification step. To be like clear, this denitrification is not good. What do you say? It doesn't show positive effect on the environment, because with great difficulty this atmospheric nitrogen or molecular nitrogen is converted into nitrates, but these denitrifying bacteria, they will reverse the entire process, which is a negative, which shows negative effect on the environment, or which is not a desirable step to be carried out in the atmosphere. And these are the microorganisms which are responsible for denitrification process. They are thiobacillus denitrificans, micrococcus denitrificans, and some species of Serratia, Pseudomonas, Bacillus, Acromobacter, and Paracoccus. Now these are the steps which are converting this nitrate to nitrogen. In the first step, when it is like till now we have seen nitrogen is gradually oxidized and then nitrate is formed. Now this nitrate will gradually undergo reduction. Reduction means addition of hydrogen. So it reacts with hydrogen and it will nitrate will convert into nitrite. Then nitrite will convert into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide will convert into nitrous oxide, and then nitrous oxide will convert into nitrogen. So in every step, hydrogen, it is reacting with the hydrogen. That is reduction step is being carried out for the conversion of one compound into another compound. So in the series of four steps, this nitrate is converted into nitrogen or molecular nitrogen. Now this is the nitrogen cycle. Atmospheric. Now here also the same um, principle will be applied. We have to remember how to draw the nitrogen cycle. Showing the arrows in a correct direction is more important. So first again we'll remember these two columns. One is at the top and the one is at the bottom. At the top it is reservoir of nitrogen or atmospheric nitrogen, and at the bottom we are having man-made nitrogenous compounds, that is fertilizers. Okay, at the top atmospheric nitrogen is there, and at the base fertilizers is there, right? In between these two columns we have to draw the nitrogen cycle. So from where to start? First you can start from here. These are the fertilizers, right? From where these fertilizers are coming? We are adding fertilizers to the fields for improving the crop production. When these fertilizers, nitrogen NPK fertilizers we are adding, right? So in that nitrogen fertilizers, when they spread, right, we use two types of fertilizers. One is nitrate fertilizers and the other one is ammonium fertilizers. Okay, so if it is nitrate, what happens? This nitrates first it will be absorbed by the plant, right? And then when this plant is burnt, it will release atmospheric nitrogen, or when it is dead, it will be resulting in decaying products. And when it is feeded upon by animals, it will enter into animals. Okay, and one more is when this atmospheric nitrogen is fixed by biological nitrogen fixation, it will enter into plants. And one more way of entering this nitrogen into nitrates is by rain, lightning, discharge, etc. Okay, so nitrogen by thunder or lightning also, this nitrogen is converted into nitrates. So this part we have understood. So first nitrates form when it is absorbed by the plants. First it is entering into the plants. If they are burnt, it will release atmospheric nitrogen. If they die, they will release, they form decaying products, or if they are feeded upon by animals, they will enter into animals. And when atmospheric nitrogen is fixed by biological nitrogen fixation, they again enter into plants. And by thunderbolt or lightning also, at such a high temperature, this atmospheric nitrogen will be converted into nitrates. Okay, next, ammonium fertilizers, when they reach ocean by leaching of rainwater, they can reach ocean directly, or by denitrifying bacteria. We have seen in the previous slides, denitrifying bacteria will convert ammonium into nitrogen. So here nitrogen will be formed. Okay, this part is over. And this part, when ammonium is acted upon by nitrosifying bacteria, example nitrosomonas and nitrosococcus, they will form nitrites, and nitrites when acted upon by nitrifying bacteria, example nitrobacter, these nitrites will be converted into nitrates. Okay, so ammonium is converted into nitrites by nitrosifying bacteria, and nitrites is converted into nitrates. This part is over, and leftover part is this one. So when plants are fed upon by animals, this nitrogen is entering into the animals, and animals when they die they'll form decaying products, and when they excrete, their excretion will also form decaying products. And these decaying products, by denitrifying bacteria, they will again release atmosphere nitrogen, molecular nitrogen into the atmosphere, example bacillus denitrificans, or by sewage these decaying products can reach ocean. Okay, so this is about nitrogen cycle. Now again, I'm repeating. First, we have to remember two columns, one at the top and the other one at the bottom. At the top, atmospheric nitrogen is there. At the bottom, fertilizers is there, which are added by humans, right? These fertilizers are of two types, nitrate fertilizers and ammonium fertilizers. First, to start with nitrate fertilizers. When these nitrates are taken up by plants, these plants, when they burn, it will release atmospheric nitrogen, or when they die, they'll form decaying products. And when they feed it upon by animals, these carbohydrates or nitrogen compounds they will enter into animals. And when this nitrogen, molecular nitrogen, is fixed by biological nitrogen fixation, they'll enter into plants, or thunderbolt or raining or lightning at such a high temperature. This molecular nitrogen is converted into nitrates and enter into the soil. And then ammonium salts, they can leach or reach the ocean directly, or by denitrifying bacteria they can be converted into atmospheric molecular nitrogen, or ammonium salts can be converted into nitrites by nitrosifying bacteria, and nitrates can be converted into nitrates by nitrifying bacteria. Okay, and when these animals they die, or when they excrete, both the things they'll result in decaying products. These decaying products by denitrifying bacteria can be converted into molecular nitrogen, or through sewage they can reach the ocean. Next, we are having hydrogen and sulfur and phosphorus cycles, but it will take more time. So let us revise once this nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle. Now, in this nitrogen cycle, we have learned there are four groups of microorganisms. Group one, they'll fix nitrogen. Second is ammonifiers, or second step is ammonification. Third is nitrification, and fourth is denitrification. Four groups of microorganisms are present in nature. First one, fixation of free nitrogen. We have to study about biological nitrogen fixation. Here we have to give the example of rhizobium and legume association, how the nitrogen is fixed in this interaction of symbiosis. And second step, we have studied ammonification. In ammonification, how these proteins are getting converted into ammonia ultimately. And nitrification is the conversion of ammonia to nitrate, and then nitrite to nitrate. And denitrification is reverse of first three steps, that is nitrate is converted into nitrogen. And this is the nitrogen cycle we have seen, where we have seen that how these fertilizers are spreading or entering into the plants, and how ultimately they are releasing atmospheric nitrogen. So in this session we have learned about two elements, that is carbon and nitrogen, how they are being recycled in the atmosphere by the help of microorganisms. So with this we'll end up this session here. Thank you for patience.